Date: February 2nd, 2018. Location: Central City. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh bread, sizzling bacon, and brewed coffee through the streets of Newcrest City. The sun had barely begun its climb over the skyline, casting golden light on the greatest American bridge, a towering steel marvel that connected the bustling downtown to the quieter suburban districts. Beneath the bridge, tucked away in a small, aging rental house, Marcus Williams, a 12-year-old black boy with sharp eyes and a quick mind, was already awake. His mother, Angela Williams, was in the tiny kitchen, flipping pancakes on an old stove that barely worked. "Marcus, baby, hurry up and eat," Angela called over her shoulder. "We got a long day ahead of us." Marcus yawned, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His mother had been up since before dawn, preparing food for their fast food cart, which they operated daily on the bridge. It wasn't glamorous, but it was their livelihood, their dream, their way out of poverty. "Coming, Ma," he said, sliding into the wobbly chair at their small wooden dining table. Angela placed a steaming plate in front of him, fluffy pancakes, crispy bacon, and scrambled eggs. It was simple, but it was a luxury in their household. She worked day and night, saving every penny to keep Marcus in school, hoping he'd have a future beyond this struggle. "You need to eat good," she reminded him, sitting down with her own plate. "Can't be out there working on an empty stomach." Marcus dug in, eating quickly but savoring every bite. His mother watched him with quiet pride. He was her everything. His father, David Williams, had died in a horrific car accident 4 years ago. Since then, Angela had raised Marcus alone, doing whatever it took to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. She refused to let her son fall into the streets, refused to let the system swallow him whole. He was smart, too smart, and she knew that if she kept him on the right path, he'd make something of himself. "Mom, you ever think we'll have our own restaurant one day?" Marcus asked between bites. Angela smiled. "Every day, baby. Every single day." She reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "But first, you're gonna finish school. That's the deal." Marcus nodded, swallowing his last bite. Yeah, school first. Got it." Angela laughed, shaking her head. "All right, let's get moving." By 6:30 a.m., Marcus and Angela were pushing their food cart up the incline of the bridge, their breath visible in the cold morning air. The cart was old but sturdy, decorated with a handmade sign that read, "Williams' Famous Breakfast Bites." They had been working here for 2 years, and by now they knew their regular customers well: construction workers, cab drivers, office employees, students. All of them relied on Angela's homemade breakfast to start their day. Marcus worked alongside his mother, handling orders, money, and even cooking when needed. He knew how to flip pancakes, wrap breakfast burritos, and make the perfect egg sandwich. "Morning, Miss Angela." "Morning, Marcus," a familiar voice called. It was Mr. Thompson, a middle-aged taxi driver who always stopped by for his usual, a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich with extra hot sauce. "Morning, Mr. Thompson." Marcus grinned, already preparing his order. "You ever think about opening a restaurant, Angela?" Thompson asked as he handed over his cash. "All the time," Angela said with a tired but hopeful smile. "Just gotta get there one step at a time." Thompson nodded. "Well, when you do, I'll be your first customer." The cart was busy as ever, with people lining up to grab food before heading off to work. Marcus moved like a pro, taking orders and making change with lightning speed. "You're getting faster every day, kid," Angela said proudly as he handed off a stack of pancakes to a young woman in a business suit. "That's 'cause I'm the best assistant ever," Marcus joked, making his mother chuckle. The bridge was alive, cars speeding past, buses rolling in, and people bustling on foot. The sun was now fully awake, bathing the city in a warm glow. It was another ordinary, hard-working morning, but ordinary was about to turn into a nightmare. By mid-morning, the rush began to slow. Marcus leaned against the cart, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Yo, Ma, we should get a second cart. We're making bank," he said excitedly. Angela smirked. "First, we need to fix this one, baby. Ain't got money for a second cart when this one barely holds together." Marcus sighed. "Yeah, I know." He looked out over the bridge, watching the city beyond it. He dreamed of something bigger, something better than this daily struggle. Then, a deep rumbling filled the air. Marcus frowned, looking around. "You hear that?" Angela turned just as a huge black truck came barreling onto the bridge. Tires screeched, brakes hissed. The truck skidded to a stop, blocking off one entire side of the bridge. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. Something felt wrong. Before anyone could react, the doors of the truck burst open. Men in black tactical gear jumped out, machine guns raised. And then a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. "Everyone! On the ground! Now!" People screamed. Workers, tourists, and drivers froze in terror. Marcus's blood ran cold. Angela grabbed him, her hands trembling. "Marcus, listen to me. Run. Now get off this bridge." Marcus's heart pounded in his chest as he looked up at his mother. "But Ma, go! Now!" she whispered fiercely, pushing him away. Marcus took one last look at her before turning and running for his life. Gunshots rang out. The bridge had become a war zone. Marcus's feet pounded against the pavement as he sprinted away from the food cart, his breath coming in short, desperate gasps. Behind him, gunfire exploded, echoing across the bridge like thunder. People screamed, car alarms wailed, and the sound of hurried footsteps filled the air as terrified pedestrians scrambled for cover. He could still hear his mother's voice in his head. "Run, Marcus! Don't look back!" But it was impossible not to look back. A quick glance over his shoulder nearly made his heart stop cold. The entire bridge had been taken over. The men who had emerged from the black truck were not just ordinary criminals. They were cartel enforcers, dressed in black tactical vests, their faces masked, their weapons military grade. These weren't just gangsters, they were soldiers of terror. One of them, a broad-shouldered man with a snake tattoo running down his arm, stood atop a nearby car, his rifle slung over his chest. He lifted a loudspeaker and bellowed, "This bridge belongs to us now. Anyone who tries to escape will die." More cartel members spilled out of the truck, their movements swift and coordinated. In seconds, they blocked off both ends of the bridge, using abandoned cars as barricades. A young woman tried to run, dashing toward an opening. Bang! A single gunshot rang out, and she collapsed before she could take another step. "Wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you've faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel." Marcus's stomach twisted in horror. They weren't bluffing. He crouched behind a concrete barrier, his fingers gripping the cold metal railing as he watched in helpless terror. His mother. Where was his mother? Through the chaos, he spotted her, Angela Williams, on her knees, her hands behind her head, surrounded by 3 armed men. They had taken her. A violent rush of emotions flooded Marcus. Fear, anger, helplessness. But he couldn't go back. If they saw him, he'd be dead or captured. And then who would save his mother? His mind raced, searching for a plan, for a way out. And then another voice boomed through the sky. But this one was different. The sharp whirring of helicopters filled the air as multiple black choppers arrived overhead. Some were marked with the FBI insignia, others with New Crest City Police Department. Snipers positioned themselves along nearby rooftops, their rifles trained on the bridge. The cartel members didn't flinch. If anything, they looked amused. Then came the breaking news alerts. Every major TV station interrupted its broadcast. Breaking news: the greatest American bridge has been hijacked by an armed cartel. Hostages are being taken. Authorities are on scene. The situation had become a global event. Social media exploded. Live feeds streamed from the sky, capturing the terror unfolding on the bridge. A cartel member, a wiry man with a scar running down his face, held up his phone, recording everything. He walked up to a kneeling hostage, a middle-aged businessman. "Tell them who we are," the cartel member sneered, shoving the phone in the man's face. The businessman's voice shook with fear. Please, my name is Arthur Gale. I have a wife and kids. Bang! A gunshot echoed, and the man slumped forward, lifeless. The cartel enforcer turned back to the camera. $20 million. That's what we want, he growled. 20 million, or we start dropping bodies. Every hour, one more dies. The world was watching. Marcus pressed his back against the concrete, his heart racing so fast he thought it might burst. He clenched his fists, his mind replaying the horrifying scene. They were killing people like it meant nothing, and his mother was still out there. He took a slow, deep breath, forcing himself to focus. He couldn't freeze up now. He had to do something. But what? His eyes darted around, scanning the bridge structure. He knew this place better than anyone. He and his mother had worked here for 2 years. They knew every shortcut, every hidden maintenance tunnel, every drainage path. His mother's voice echoed in his head again. "You're smart, baby. Smarter than they know." That's it. The cartel might have taken the bridge, but they didn't know it like he did. Marcus wasn't strong, he wasn't armed, but he had something they didn't. Knowledge. He turned his head, carefully peeking out from behind the barrier. A few feet away, a group of cartel members were focused on the police presence, their backs turned. This was his chance. Marcus dropped to his stomach and crawled silently, moving along the edge of the bridge. He kept low, hugging the cold steel beams, inching toward the service hatch he knew existed just a few feet ahead. One wrong move, one sound, and they'd see him. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears, the distant shouts of police negotiating with the cartel, the hum of helicopters hovering above. And then, there it was, a small, rusted maintenance door, half hidden behind a stack of old construction cones. The service tunnel. If he could make it inside, he could move undetected under the bridge, find his way to a safe place and... Hey! Marcus froze. A cartel member had spotted movement. The man turned, raising his machine gun. Marcus launched himself toward the hatch, yanking it open just as... Rat-tat-tat! Bullets sprayed against the concrete, shattering brick and steel where he had been seconds ago. He threw himself inside the tunnel, slamming the door shut behind him. His heart pounded so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. Footsteps thundered outside. "Find him!" a cartel member barked. "Check every damn corner. He's just a kid. He couldn't have gone far." Marcus pressed himself against the damp, dark wall of the tunnel, his body trembling. They were hunting him now, but they didn't know one thing. Marcus knew this bridge better than anyone, and he was going to use it to fight back. The darkness swallowed Marcus whole as he crouched inside the narrow service tunnel beneath the greatest American bridge. His chest rose and fell in panicked breaths, his palms pressed flat against the damp steel wall. Above him, he could hear the cartel soldiers shouting orders, their boots thudding against the pavement as they searched for him. "Find that kid! I don't want him sneaking around." Marcus swallowed hard. They were hunting him now, but they didn't know what he knew. The bridge was more than just steel and concrete to Marcus. It was his home, his territory, his survival ground. For the past 2 years, he had spent nearly every day here with his mother, learning its hidden corners, forgotten maintenance routes, and secret pathways. The cartel thought they had sealed off every exit, but Marcus knew the truth. "You don't control this bridge. I do." Keeping low, he started to move, creeping through the cramped tunnel with careful, deliberate steps. His fingers brushed against old pipes and rusted beams as he navigated by memory. The air was thick with dust and moisture, the faint smell of rust and oil filling his nostrils. The bridge had layers, a maze of tunnels, drainage pipes, and abandoned service shafts running beneath its surface, and Marcus knew every single one of them. His mind raced with a plan. First, find a safe place, somewhere they wouldn't think to look. Second, figure out a way to contact someone who could help. Third, find Mom. No matter what, he wasn't leaving this bridge without her. Above him, the cartel was getting restless. "Where the hell did he go?" one of them snapped. "Check the maintenance access. If he went underground, he's got to come up somewhere." Marcus knew he had minutes, maybe seconds, before they found the same hatch he had used. He crawled deeper into the tunnel, moving as fast as he could without making noise. He could feel his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, sweat dripping down the back of his neck. The tunnel narrowed, forcing him to crawl on his elbows. His fingers scraped against metal grates and loose screws, his shirt catching on old bolts that jutted out from the walls. Then up ahead, a junction. 3 separate pathways branched off in different directions. Marcus paused, listening. The cartel was still above him, but they sounded closer now. Think, Marcus, think. He forced himself to remember everything he had ever learned about this bridge. The left tunnel led to an old electrical station, probably too risky. The right tunnel sloped downward toward the river. Not an option. The middle tunnel led to... Marcus's eyes widened. The storage room! It was an abandoned supply chamber beneath the bridge, filled with old tools, crates, and broken equipment. Best of all, it had a hidden ladder that led back up to the main road inside an old storm drain. That was his way out. Keeping low, Marcus crawled forward, sliding into the middle tunnel just as he heard the maintenance hatch above get kicked open. He's down there! Crap, crap, crap! Marcus bolted forward, his hands and knees scraping against the rough metal floor as he raced toward the storage room. Gunfire erupted behind him. Bullets ricocheted off the tunnel walls, sending sparks flying. Move! Get him! Marcus dove forward, sliding into the open chamber, just as more bullets whizzed past his head. The tunnel was too small for the cartel members to rush in all at once. Marcus had seconds to act. He scrambled to his feet, his eyes darting around the dark storage space. The room was cluttered with rusted toolboxes, old barrels, and discarded metal pipes. And there it was, the ladder. His escape. Marcus sprinted toward the metal ladder, grabbing the rungs just as cartel boots crashed into the room behind him. There he is! Marcus hauled himself upward, his arms burning as he climbed as fast as he could. Below, one of the cartel enforcers raised his rifle. But Marcus kicked at the ladder, knocking loose a pile of old metal sheets stacked nearby. The loud crash echoed through the chamber as the sheets came tumbling down, slamming onto the cartel members below like an avalanche. Ah, damn it! Marcus didn't stop. He climbed higher and higher, his fingers slipping against the damp steel, his muscles screaming in protest. Above him, a circular metal grate blocked the exit. Come on, he gritted his teeth, pushing against it with all his strength. For a horrifying second, it wouldn't budge. Then, wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. The rusted bolts snapped. The grate popped open, and Marcus heaved himself out, rolling onto solid pavement just as... Bang! A bullet tore through the edge of the opening, missing him by inches. Marcus slammed the grate shut and took off, running. Marcus didn't stop until he was half a block away from the bridge, ducking into a narrow alleyway. His lungs burned, his legs felt like jelly, but he couldn't afford to stop. He needed a plan. He needed help. And then, a shadow loomed over him. Marcus froze, instinctively raising his fists, and found himself staring up at a tall woman in tactical gear. A CIA uniform. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight ponytail, her blue eyes sharp and alert. She had a pistol holstered on her thigh, an earpiece in her ear, and a badge clipped to her belt. Jesus Christ, kid, she muttered, kneeling down. Are you okay? Marcus swallowed hard. Who are you? She exhaled, scanning the bridge behind them. Agent Jessica Carter, CIA. Marcus's breath hitched. CIA. Jessica placed a firm hand on his shoulder. You're safe now, she said, but we need to get the hell out of here. Marcus shook his head, his body still trembling. No, he said, his voice filled with determination. Jessica frowned. What do you mean, no? Marcus looked up, his fists clenched, his fear buried beneath a rising storm of anger. They took my mom. Jessica's expression softened, but she shook her head. I get it, kid, but this is too dangerous. We need to get you to safety. No, Marcus interrupted. I know this bridge better than anyone. I can help you get inside. I can help you stop them. Jessica hesitated. Please, Marcus pleaded. I'm not leaving without her. Jessica studied him for a long moment. Then she sighed and reached for her radio. Base, this is Carter, she said. I've got a civilian asset, and he knows the bridge. She looked back at Marcus. All right, kid, she said. You want in? Marcus nodded. Then let's go save your mom. Marcus followed Agent Jessica Carter through a maze of alleys and side streets, his heart still pounding from his escape. They moved fast, dodging abandoned cars, overturned trash bins, and groups of panicked civilians who were trying to get as far away from the bridge as possible. Everywhere, the city was in chaos. The bridge wasn't just an isolated attack anymore. The entire Newcrest City police force was mobilizing. FBI agents, SWAT teams, even National Guard units were setting up barricades, helicopters circling above like vultures. Marcus felt his gut twist. None of them were making a move. They were standing back, waiting. The cartel had hostages. His mother was one of them. "We don't have time to wait." Jessica led him into an abandoned construction site where a makeshift command center had been set up inside a partially built skyscraper. Tactical gear, laptops, and communication equipment were scattered across a table, with agents, officers, and military personnel huddled around, whispering in hushed, urgent tones. A giant digital screen displayed live footage of the bridge. Drones hovered over the area, feeding back video of the armed cartel soldiers patrolling the hostages, their rifles ready to execute anyone who resisted. Marcus spotted his mother in the footage, her hands tied behind her back, kneeling among the others. His stomach clenched in fury. A stern-faced FBI commander, dressed in full tactical gear, turned when Jessica walked in. "Agent Carter," he said in a clipped tone. "Who's the kid?" Jessica placed a firm hand on Marcus's shoulder. "He's Marcus Williams. He was on the bridge when the attack happened. He escaped through the maintenance tunnels before the cartel could grab him." The commander gave Marcus a sharp, assessing look. "You're lucky to be alive, son." Marcus shook his head. "No, sir. I knew the way out." Jessica exhaled. "That's why I brought him here." She turned to the others. "This kid knows the bridge better than anyone. He knows the tunnels, the storage areas, the shortcuts. He could be the key to getting our people inside." A long silence filled the room. Marcus could feel the weight of doubtful stares settling on him. "Absolutely not," one of the FBI agents snapped. "We're not involving a child in an active hostage crisis." Another officer, a grizzled police captain, nodded in agreement. "Carter, we appreciate the intel, but we're not sending a kid into a war zone." Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady, his eyes fierce. "You don't get it," he said. "My mom is in there. I'm not going anywhere until she's safe." The commander sighed, rubbing his temples. "Look, kid." "No, you look," Marcus interrupted. "You guys are just sitting here watching. You don't know the bridge. I do. I can help you get inside without them seeing you." Another silence. Jessica looked at Marcus, then at the commander. "He's right," she said finally. "If we try a frontal assault, they'll execute hostages. We need a stealth entry, and Marcus can get us through the bridge's underground passages." The commander frowned, thinking. "This is insane," one of the SWAT officers muttered. Jessica took a deep breath. Then she turned to Marcus. "You really sure about this?" Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'm not leaving my mom." Jessica exhaled. "All right, then let's get to work." The room erupted into activity. Maps of the bridge were spread across the table, and Marcus pointed out the service tunnels, ventilation shafts, and old storage areas that the cartel likely didn't know about. "This tunnel here?" He pointed to an old storm drain that ran beneath the bridge. "It leads directly under where they're keeping the hostages. If we go in from here, we can get inside without being seen." The commander nodded slowly. "And the exits?" "There's a ladder shaft here." Marcus pointed to another point on the blueprint. "It leads up to a maintenance area behind the cartel barricades. If we can get a team up there, we can take out their snipers without them seeing us." The SWAT leader grunted. "It's a tight squeeze, but it could work." Jessica crossed her arms. "We don't have a better option. If we wait, people will die." The commander nodded. "All right, we move in 1 hour. Everyone, gear up." An hour later, Marcus stood in the shadows beneath the bridge, his heart hammering in his chest. He was dressed in black tactical gear, borrowed from the FBI supply crates. The vest was slightly too big, and the combat boots were heavy, but he felt ready. Jessica knelt beside him, checking her silenced pistol. Around them, a small squad of SWAT officers and CIA agents were prepped with night vision goggles, suppressed weapons, and combat knives. They were moving in silence. Marcus took a deep breath. This was it. Jessica placed a hand on his shoulder. "We stick to the plan, all right? No hero moves." Marcus nodded, though deep down, he wasn't sure he could promise that. A hand signal from the lead SWAT officer. "Move." Marcus led the team through the underground tunnel, crouching low as they advanced. The air was damp and cold, the scent of rust filling his nose. Up ahead, a faint orange glow flickered. Torchlights. The cartel had posted guards at the far end. Jessica tapped Marcus's shoulder, motioning for him to stay put. The agents moved like shadows, creeping forward in perfect silence. Then, thwip! A knife flashed in the darkness, and one of the cartel guards dropped without a sound. The other turned. Too late. Jessica fired her silenced pistol. The second guard slumped forward. Marcus let out the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. No turning back now. They reached the metal ladder shaft, exactly as Marcus had described. Jessica gave Marcus a nod. "Good work, kid." Marcus climbed up first, his hands shaking as he reached the top. Peeking out, he saw them, cartel snipers positioned along the bridge's upper guardrails. They hadn't seen him yet. Marcus motioned to Jessica. "Two up here." Jessica relayed the signal to the agents. Seconds later, silent gunfire. The snipers collapsed. Marcus exhaled shakily. They were in. He looked toward the center of the bridge, where his mother and the hostages were still kneeling under gunpoint. His fists clenched. "I'm coming, Ma." Marcus could feel the night air biting at his skin as he crouched low, his hands gripping the cold steel railing of the maintenance walkway. From his vantage point, he had a clear view of the chaos unfolding on the bridge. The cartel had completely fortified their positions, setting up makeshift barricades using abandoned cars, crates, and stolen police shields. Beyond the barriers, his mother and the other hostages knelt in a tight group, their hands bound, their faces pale with fear. Several cartel gunmen paced back and forth, their fingers twitching near the triggers of their AK-47s, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. Marcus swallowed hard, forcing down the rage building inside him. His mother was right there, so close, yet completely out of reach. Beside him, Agent Jessica Carter peered through a pair of night vision binoculars, whispering updates into her earpiece. The team was in position. "Snipers neutralized, no alarms raised," she murmured. Below them, the SWAT and FBI assault teams were moving silently into their assigned positions, slinking through the dark service tunnels and stacking up near the cartel's blind spots. Marcus turned to Jessica. "How do we do this?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Jessica handed him an earpiece, which he quickly put in. "We hit them fast and hard," she said. "But the hostages are priority one. If we don't move carefully, they'll start executing them the second they feel outnumbered." Marcus's hands clenched into tight fists. "Then we make sure they don't get the chance." Jessica nodded. "We've got 2 minutes before we go loud. Get ready." Marcus adjusted the small tactical vest the FBI had given him. It was too big, but he didn't care. He reached down, gripping a small combat knife Jessica had given him for self-defense. It felt alien in his hands. He had never held a weapon before. But tonight, he wasn't a kid. Tonight, he was at war. The countdown hit 0. Everything happened at once. PH whip. PH whip. Suppressors coughed as FBI snipers took out cartel lookouts, their bodies crumpling silently before they could even call for help. Then, boom! A controlled explosion tore through one of the barricades, sending cartel gunmen sprawling as flames lit up the night. "Move! Go! Go!" Jessica barked into her radio. "Wait! If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you've faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel." The SWAT teams surged forward, emerging from hidden tunnels and storming the bridge with military precision. Gunfire erupted, cartel rifles barking in desperation as the trained assault teams returned fire with ruthless efficiency. Marcus stayed close to Jessica, his heart slamming against his ribs as they dashed across the open ground, weaving between burning wreckage and fallen bodies. A cartel gunman spotted them. Marcus barely had time to react before Jessica whipped her silenced pistol up and put 2 rounds in the man's chest and skull. Marcus froze for half a second as the body collapsed beside him, his first up-close kill. The man's eyes were still open. Jessica grabbed Marcus's arm, snapping him out of it. "Keep moving," she ordered. He didn't argue. Marcus saw her, his mother, still kneeling, her hands bound, her face streaked with sweat and dirt. She was alive. But standing right next to her, gun to her head, was a cartel lieutenant, a thick, tattooed enforcer with a shaved head, barking orders into his radio. Marcus didn't think. He moved on instinct. He tore away from Jessica, sprinting toward his mother as the firefight exploded around him. The cartel lieutenant turned, his gun shifting toward Marcus. Time slowed. Marcus saw everything, the way the man's finger curled around the trigger, the flicker of recognition in his eyes as he realized Marcus was just a kid. But Marcus wasn't stopping. He dropped low, grabbing a fallen brick from the ground, and with every ounce of strength in his body, crack! He smashed it across the cartel soldier's face, sending the man staggering back, blood spraying from his nose. The gun clattered to the ground. Marcus didn't hesitate. He lunged, grabbing it. "Marcus!" His mother's scream cut through the chaos. Marcus spun. The cartel soldier was already swinging back at him. Marcus pulled the trigger. Bang! The gunshot rang out, louder than anything he had ever heard. The man stumbled back, clutching his stomach, eyes wide in shock. Then slowly, he collapsed. Marcus couldn't breathe. He had just shot someone. His hands trembled as he stared at the smoking pistol. His mother was looking at him, her eyes wide with shock, fear, and something else. Something he couldn't name. But there was no time to process it. Jessica rushed in, slashing at Angela's ropes with a combat knife. "We have to move," she shouted. Marcus forced himself to focus. He grabbed his mother's hand, pulling her up. "Mom, we have to go." Angela still looked shaken, but she nodded, holding on to him for dear life. Together they ran. Marcus, Angela, and Jessica weaved through the chaos, dodging bullets and flames as the final battle raged. The cartel was falling back, their numbers dwindling. The remaining cartel piled into the stolen black truck that had started the siege. Marcus saw a figure climb into the passenger seat, a man in a blood-red suit, not just any man, the cartel leader. Marcus felt white-hot rage flood through him. "He's getting away!" he yelled. Jessica swore under her breath, raising her gun, too far for a shot. The truck's engine roared to life, tires screeching as it sped toward the barricade opening. Marcus made a decision, one that had no hesitation. He saw a fallen police rifle on the ground. One of the SWAT officers had dropped it. Marcus grabbed it, raising it to his shoulder. His hands were steady now. He took aim and fired. The windshield shattered, the driver's skull exploding in a mist of red. The truck swerved violently, losing control. Crash! It slammed into the bridge's railing, teetering dangerously on the edge before screech. It plunged off the side, disappearing into the darkness below. Silence. Then the sound of cheering. The cartel was finished. The battle was won. Marcus slowly lowered the rifle, his breath ragged, his chest rising and falling in uneven gas. Jessica walked over, staring down at him. She gave a slow, approving nod. "Hell of a shot, kid." Marcus exhaled. He looked at his mother. She was crying, but this time, it wasn't just fear. It was relief. Marcus had saved her. He had saved them all. But deep down, he knew. Something inside him had changed forever. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the bridge was quiet. No more gunfire. No more explosions. No more screaming. Just the distant sound of police sirens, the whir of helicopter blades, and the murmured voices of survivors as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. Marcus stood motionless, his hand still gripping the rifle as he stared at the wreckage below. The cartel's black truck was now a mangled heap of metal, smoke rising from where it had crashed into the riverbank. Somewhere down there, buried under the twisted wreck, was the cartel leader, the man who had ordered the execution of innocent people, who had taken Marcus's mother hostage, who had turned the greatest American bridge into a war zone, dead. It should have felt like victory. Instead, Marcus felt nothing. The rifle suddenly felt too heavy. its weight pressing down on him like an anchor. His fingers trembled as he slowly lowered it. His chest felt tight, his breathing uneven. His mind replayed the moment over and over. The shot, the windshield shattering, the truck swerving, the fall. I killed him! The thought slammed into him like a freight train. This wasn't like punching a bully or throwing a brick at a cartel enforcer. This was real. He had pulled the trigger and ended a life. His stomach twisted. He felt like he was going to throw up. A warm hand gripped his shoulder. Marcus flinched, his body still on edge, until he realized it was his mother. Marcus. Angela's voice was soft, trembling with emotion. He turned to face her. Tears streamed down her face, her body still shaking from everything that had happened. But when she looked at him, there was only love in her eyes. She pulled him into a tight embrace, holding him as if she were afraid he might disappear if she let go. You saved me, baby, she whispered. You saved all of us. Marcus pressed his face against her shoulder, squeezing his eyes shut. For a moment, he let himself be her son again. Not a soldier, not a warrior, not the kid who had just shot a man, just her son. We got survivors over here. The voices of FBI agents and police officers rang through the night as emergency teams rushed onto the bridge. The surviving hostages were being untied, their cries of relief filling the air as they embraced their loved ones or collapsed onto the pavement in exhaustion. Paramedics swarmed in, checking for injuries, stabilizing those who had been wounded. Marcus and Angela sat side by side, leaning against the cold steel barrier as they watched the scene unfold. Nearby, Agent Jessica Carter stood with the FBI commander, giving a debrief of what had happened. We lost 3 agents in the assault, she said, her tone grim. But the mission was a success. The cartel's forces were eliminated. The bridge is back under control. The commander nodded. And the boy? Jessica turned to look at Marcus, who was sitting silently beside his mother, staring off into the distance. She sighed. The kid saved lives tonight. The commander crossed his arms. We need to talk to him. Jessica gave him a sharp look. He's been through enough. Give him a minute. The commander hesitated, then nodded. All right, but the media's already got wind of this. They're calling him a hero. Jessica glanced at Marcus again. He didn't look like a kid who felt like a hero. Within minutes, news crews had arrived, reporters scrambling for a story, their cameras flashing, their microphones thrust forward as they chased after FBI officials and survivors. Marcus had barely processed what was happening when he felt the presence of cameras turning toward him. There he is! That's the kid! A flood of reporters rushed forward, their voices overlapping in a chaotic storm of questions. Marcus, how does it feel to be a hero? Can you tell us what was going through your mind when you shot the cartel leader? Are you afraid after what happened tonight? How does it feel to know you saved the hostages? Marcus felt his chest tighten. Hero? He didn't feel like a hero. He felt different. Something inside him had changed, something that he didn't understand yet. Jessica stepped between him and the reporters, holding up a firm hand. That's enough. Give the kid space. The reporters hesitated, but when a squad of SWAT officers stepped in, they backed off. Angela grabbed Marcus's hand. Come on, baby, let's get out of here. They turned to leave. Then a deep voice rang out. Marcus Williams! Marcus froze. The crowd parted and a tall, well-dressed black man in an expensive suit stepped forward. His presence was commanding, his expression unreadable. Angela stiffened. Oh my God! Marcus looked up, confused. Mom, who is that? Angela swallowed hard, her eyes wide. That's the mayor of New Crest City. The mayor stopped a few feet in front of Marcus, looking down at him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. You're quite the young man, he said. I've been watching the news all night. What you did was extraordinary. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I just wanted to save my mom, the mayor nodded. And you did. But you did more than that. He gestured toward the bridge. You saved everyone on that bridge. You fought back when most adults wouldn't have. You stood up against something most people would have run from. Marcus didn't know what to say. The mayor continued. The city owes you a debt, Marcus. Angela looked nervous. Sir, he's just a kid. He shouldn't have had to. I agree, the mayor said, but the fact is he did, and we want to do something for him. Marcus frowned. What do you mean? The mayor smiled. A full scholarship. Any school you want. Any university. Paid in full. Angela gasped. Marcus's eyes widened, but the mayor wasn't done. That's not all. We're also awarding your family a new home. You won't have to worry about rent or struggling anymore. You and your mother deserve better than that. Angela covered her mouth, tears welling up. Marcus just stood there, unable to process what was happening. Marcus, you changed the course of this city's history tonight, the mayor said, and we don't forget our heroes. Marcus looked at his mother, seeing the hope in her eyes. Then he looked back at the bridge, where he had changed forever. He nodded slowly. Wait. If you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Okay, as the cameras flashed and the world called him a hero, Marcus Williams knew one thing for sure. His life would never be the same again. A city that would never forget the days after the greatest American bridge. Siege felt like a fever dream for Marcus. One moment, he was just a 12-year-old kid working a food cart with his mom. The next, he was the most talked about person in Newcrest City. The news cycle didn't stop. Every television, every website, every radio station had his name on it. 12-year-old black boy saves CIA agent and hostages. Kid hero takes down cartel leader in epic showdown. Marcus Williams, the youngest warrior Newcrest has ever seen. His face was everywhere. They put him on TV interviews. News anchors asked him what it felt like to kill a man, but he didn't know how to answer. They printed his name in newspapers. Articles called him the future of the city, but all he wanted was for things to go back to how they were. They made hashtags about him on social media. Janchas Black Boy Hero was trending, people saying he was a symbol of strength, a legend in the making. But Marcus didn't feel like a legend. He felt lost. Because while the city celebrated him, he couldn't forget the blood on his hands. The day the mayor's promise became real, Marcus and Angela were driven across town in a black government SUV, escorted by city officials and cameras. When the car stopped, Marcus stared through the window in shock. A two-story house stood before him, modern, clean, and freshly painted, a complete contrast to the tiny, crumbling rental house they had lived in before. Angela covered her mouth. Oh my God. The mayor's assistant smiled. Welcome home, Williams. Family. Marcus stepped out of the car slowly, his sneakers crunching against the perfectly paved driveway. His new driveway. Everything about it felt unreal. Inside, the house had brand new furniture, a full kitchen, and even a gaming setup in his new bedroom. The city had spared no expense. Angela stood in the living room, her hands trembling as she ran them over the marble countertops, the plush couches, the framed welcome letter from the mayor himself. Tears fell down her cheeks. We never have to struggle again, she whispered. No more worrying about rent. No more worrying about bills. Baby, we made it. Marcus wanted to be happy. He really did. But all he could think about was the bullet leaving his gun, the cartel leader's body falling, the way his hands wouldn't stop shaking afterward. He was home, but something in him hadn't come back from that bridge. 2 weeks later, Marcus stood in the middle of a school gymnasium, wearing a button-up shirt that felt too stiff and shoes that were too polished. Hundreds of students, teachers, and city officials filled the bleachers, watching him from every direction. The mayor stood beside him, smiling for the cameras as he handed Marcus a gold medal with the city's emblem on it. The crowd erupted into applause. Marcus felt like he was being crushed under the weight of it. Marcus, the mayor said into the microphone, you represent the very best of this city. You are strong. You are brave. And today we honor you for your incredible heroism. More applause. Marcus forced himself to smile, even though the medal felt heavier than it should have. Everyone wanted him to be proud, but inside he just felt tired. That night, Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. They were still, too still. Something had changed in him. Before he had been just a boy, a kid who worked hard, dreamed big, and had plans to grow up, go to college, make his mom proud. Now the world saw him differently. Not just a boy, not just a kid from the struggle, but a weapon, a warrior, someone who had killed and survived. The thought made him feel cold inside. His door creaked open. Angela stepped in, wearing her old robe, her eyes still tired from the weeks of stress and recovery. She sat next to him. "Can't sleep?" Marcus shook his head. "Just thinking." Angela studied him for a moment. "You know you don't have to do this, right?" she said softly. Marcus frowned. "Do what?" "Carry this like it's your burden alone." Marcus didn't answer. Angela sighed, reaching out and brushing a hand over his hair, something she used to do when he was small. "You don't have to be strong all the time, baby," she whispered. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone. You already did enough." Marcus wanted to believe her, but deep down, he wasn't so sure, because the truth was, he didn't feel like he was done. The next morning, a black government car pulled up in front of the house. Marcus saw it from his bedroom window, his stomach tightening. Jessica Carter stepped out. Marcus rushed downstairs as Angela opened the door, surprised to see the CIA agent standing there. "Agent Carter?" Angela said. "What are you doing here?" Jessica nodded in greeting. "Sorry to show up unannounced. I just needed to talk to Marcus." Angela hesitated, looking between them. Jessica looked serious. Too serious. Angela stepped aside. "Come in." Jessica followed Marcus into the kitchen, sitting across from him at the table. She placed a thick file in front of him. "What's this?" Marcus asked. Jessica folded her hands. "Something you should see." Marcus flipped the file open, and his breath caught. Inside were photos, documents, maps, not of the greatest American bridge siege, but of something else, something bigger. "That cartel attack," Jessica said, "that wasn't random. It was just one piece of a much larger operation." Marcus's eyes scanned the papers, his pulse quickening. The photos showed weapons shipments, money transfers, high-profile names, and then one image froze him in place. A man, dressed in an expensive suit, standing in a dark room, surrounded by armed guards. His face was shadowed, but Marcus could feel his presence even through the photograph. "The man behind it all," Jessica said grimly. "The one who gave the order to take that bridge." Marcus's fingers tightened around the paper. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice low. Jessica studied him carefully. "You have a choice, Marcus," she said. "You can take the life the city gave you, the scholarship, the new home, the fresh start." She leaned forward. "Or you can help us stop him." Marcus closed his eyes for a long moment. The world wanted him to move on, but now he knew the truth. The fight wasn't over. He exhaled, then looked Jessica dead in the eye. "When do we start?" The offer. The kitchen felt smaller than it should have. Jessica Carter sat across from Marcus, her fingers laced together, her ice blue eyes unreadable. The thick CIA file lay open between them, its contents staring up at him like a challenge he couldn't ignore. On the pages were grainy surveillance photos, intercepted messages, and maps marked with red ink. But it was the one photo that held Marcus frozen, the man in the suit, his face shadowed, standing in a dimly lit room surrounded by armed enforcers. Marcus didn't know his name, but he knew his kind, the kind that sat in high places, giving orders that turned neighborhoods into battlefields, that destroyed families like they were pieces on a chessboard, never getting their own hands dirty. He had seen the result of this man's choices on the greatest American bridge, and now Jessica was telling him he was still out there, that the fight wasn't over. Marcus closed his eyes for a second, his mind flashing back to that night. The gunfire, the smoke, his mother's terrified face, the weight of the rifle in his hands, the cartel leader falling from the bridge. He hadn't been ready for that moment, but he had done it, and now they were asking him to do it again. "When do we start?" he asked, his voice steady. Jessica exhaled, but there was no relief in her eyes. She studied him for a long time, her gaze sharp, calculating. "You sure about this, kid?" she asked. "This isn't some movie. It's not about revenge or proving anything. It's a war that never really ends." Marcus didn't blink. "You came here because you knew what my answer would be." Jessica tilted her head slightly, then smirked. "Yeah," she admitted. "I did." She pulled out another folder, this one thinner, and slid it across the table. "Before we talk about when, let's talk about how." Before Marcus could grab the folder, Angela Williams's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Marcus, don't!" Both Marcus and Jessica turned. Angela stood in the doorway, her face pale, her eyes filled with fear and something else. Something even stronger than fear. Anger. "You are not doing this," she said, stepping forward, her hands clenched into fists. "You are not getting involved in this kind of life." "Mom," Marcus started. "No!" Her voice cracked, but she held firm. "You think I don't know what this is? This is how it starts. They get you young, they use you up, and when they're done, you're either dead, in prison, or worse." Marcus flinched, but he didn't look away. Angela turned on Jessica. "You think because he survived that bridge, he's one of you now?" Jessica's face was unreadable. "Your son saved more lives in one night than most people do in a lifetime. He has something special." Angela let out a bitter laugh. "You mean he's useful?" Jessica didn't deny it. Angela looked back at Marcus, her dark brown eyes filled with pain. "You're 12, baby, 12. You should be playing basketball, getting in trouble for sneaking video games after bedtime, not—" She shook her head. "Not learning how to kill people." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He didn't want to hurt her, but he couldn't ignore the truth either. "Mom," he said quietly, "they're still out there. The people who did this, the people who would have killed you, who are going to do it again to someone else." Angela swallowed hard. "That's not your fight." Marcus clenched his fists. "It is now." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away, shaking her head. "Baby, you don't understand what you're stepping into." "Yes, I do." His voice was harder now. "I didn't ask for this, but it happened, and now I have to deal with it." Angela was silent for a long time, just looking at him. Then finally she spoke. "Do you even know what you're fighting for?" she whispered. Marcus hesitated, but before he could answer, Jessica stood up, placing a hand on Angela's shoulder. "I promise you," she said, her tone softer now, "I won't let him go down the wrong path, but you have to accept that he's already on a path." Angela looked away. "That's what I'm afraid of." Then without another word, she turned and walked away. Marcus felt something in his chest twist painfully as he watched her go. But he didn't stop her, because he knew this was something she couldn't protect him from. Not anymore. Over the next few weeks, Marcus's life changed again. Jessica didn't throw him into the fire right away. Instead, she tested him. She introduced him to people in the agency, people who had seen things that most civilians never would. She had him run drills in an abandoned warehouse, learning how to move quietly, how to observe without being seen, how to read body language. She gave him puzzles, tests, made him think like the people they were hunting. "Fighting isn't just about shooting," she told him one night after he failed a tactical exercise. "It's about outthinking your enemy. If you can do that, you'll always be a step ahead." Marcus took it seriously, maybe too seriously. At school, things felt different. The other kids whispered about him, some in awe, some in fear, some in jealousy. He didn't care. The teachers looked at him like he was something else now. He didn't care. All he cared about was getting better, stronger, ready. Because one thing was clear. If he didn't prepare for the next fight, it would find him anyway. One night, Jessica handed him a sealed file. "No tests this time," she said. "This is real." Marcus opened it and felt his pulse quicken. The file contained a name, a location, a mission. "Your first assignment," Jessica said, watching him carefully. "Who is he?" Marcus asked, staring at the photo of a man sitting in a luxury penthouse, surrounded by armed guards. Jessica leaned in. "He was one of the financiers for the cartel that took the bridge. He thinks he's safe. He's wrong." Marcus looked at her. "And what do you want me to do?" Jessica smirked. "We're not sending you in to fight, kid," she said. We're sending you into Steel. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Steel what? Jessica's expression turned deadly serious. The list of every corrupt politician, cop, and businessman funding this operation. Marcus exhaled slowly. A month ago, he was working a food cart with his mom. Wait, if you support racism, comment 55. If you stand against it, comment 77. If you faced racism, let us know and share your story with us at our email in the channel description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Now he was being asked to infiltrate a criminal empire. He should have been afraid. Instead, he felt ready. Jessica handed him a fake ID, a new name, a new face to the world. Marcus Williams, the boy from the bridge, was about to disappear, and in his place, a new kind of soldier was being born. "Welcome to the game, kid," Jessica said. Marcus smirked. "Let's play." A new name, a new face. Marcus sat in the back seat of a blacked-out SUV, staring at the fake ID in his hands. It didn't have his name on it. It didn't say Marcus Williams, the kid who saved a bridge, the kid who worked a food cart with his mom, the kid who never imagined being in this world. The name on the ID read Jaden Cross. His birthday had changed. His address wasn't real. His school didn't exist. As far as the world knew, Marcus Williams had disappeared, and in his place was someone the world didn't know yet. "You good, kid?" Jessica Carter asked from the front seat, watching him through the rearview mirror. Marcus closed his fingers around the ID and nodded. "Yeah, just thinking." Jessica smirked. "Thinking is good. Overthinking, that'll get you killed." Marcus didn't answer. He wasn't overthinking. He was preparing. Because this wasn't like the bridge siege. He wasn't running. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't trying to survive. This time, he was walking into danger on purpose. The SUV pulled up to an exclusive nightclub in downtown Newcrest City. The kind of place where millionaires, criminals, and corrupt politicians rubbed elbows, making deals over expensive whiskey while pretending they weren't destroying lives. Jessica turned in her seat, her blue eyes sharp. "All right, listen up. Your target is Dante Salazar, a mid-level cartel banker. He moves money for the people responsible for the bridge attack. If we take him out, we hurt their pockets. But we don't need him dead. We need his client list." Marcus leaned forward. "How do I get it?" Jessica smirked. "You're going to walk right in. And take it." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That easy, huh?" Jessica handed him a small earpiece. "Not easy, just possible. I'll be in your ear, guiding you through. But once you're inside, it's all on you, kid." Marcus took a deep breath, put in the earpiece, and stepped out of the car. He adjusted his black hoodie, ran a hand over his fresh fade haircut, and walked toward the entrance like he belonged there. Because tonight, he did. Tonight, he wasn't Marcus Williams. He was Jaden Cross. Two massive bouncers stood at the club entrance, arms crossed, their tattooed muscles stretching against black suits. Marcus walked up, his heart pounding, but he kept his face calm. Confidence. That's what Jessica had told him. People don't question what looks normal. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a VIP access card Jessica had arranged for him through one of her many CIA tricks. The bouncer looked at it, then at Marcus. "You don't look like VIP," Marcus smirked, keeping his posture relaxed. "You don't look smart, but here we are." Jessica's voice hissed in his earpiece. "What the hell are you doing, kid?" The bouncer's face darkened, but instead of getting mad, he chuckled. "I like you, little man," he said, stepping aside. "Go ahead, don't get yourself killed in there." Marcus gave him a mocking salute and walked in. Jessica sighed in his ear. "You got a death wish?" Marcus smirked. "Just making friends." The club was a different world, a place where power moved in shadows. Marcus stepped inside, letting the pulse of bass-heavy music shake his bones. The air smelled like cologne, expensive alcohol, and something darker, something dangerous. People dressed in silk suits and designer dresses lounged in VIP booths, whispering about money, drugs, and things that would never be printed in newspapers. This wasn't just a club, it was a hub for the city's criminal elite, and his target was right in the middle of it all. Dante Salazar. Slick black hair, olive skin, sharp cheekbones. He wore a gold watch that probably cost more than Marcus's old house, and in his hands, a silver briefcase. Marcus knew what was inside before Jessica even confirmed it in his ear. That's the client list. He had two options: play it slow, get close to Salazar, earn his trust, steal the case quietly, go loud, cause a distraction, grab it, and run like hell. Marcus thought fast. If he got too close, Salazar would recognize him later. If he went loud, he'd have to outrun a room full of armed criminals. He needed a third option. And then he spotted it, a waiter passing by, carrying a tray of champagne glasses. Marcus smiled. "Jessica," he muttered under his breath, "I think it's time for some bad service." Marcus moved fast, weaving through the crowd like a shadow. He grabbed a full glass of champagne from a table, holding it low so it wouldn't attract attention. Then, he stumbled forward, faking a trip. The glass flew from his hand, spinning in the air, and smashed directly onto Dante Salazar's expensive suit. "Mierda!" Salazar cursed, jumping up from his seat, shaking alcohol off his designer jacket. Marcus froze, eyes wide in fake panic. "Oh man, I'm so sorry," he said, his voice frantic, apologetic. "Dude, my bad, that was... Do you have any idea how much this suit costs?" Salazar snarled, grabbing Marcus by the front of his hoodie. "Perfect." Marcus let himself be yanked forward, his hand already slipping into Salazar's coat pocket. The briefcase key was there. He grabbed it without hesitation. Salazar shoved him back. "Get the hell out of here before I break your teeth, kid." Marcus stumbled away, head down, hiding his smirk. He had the key. Now he just had to take the case. Marcus waited until Salazar stormed off to the bathroom, still cursing about his suit. Then, he walked straight to the VIP booth, unlocked the briefcase, swapped it with an identical case he had hidden under a nearby table, and walked out like he owned the place. By the time Salazar returned, Marcus was already outside, climbing into the waiting black SUV. Jessica grinned at him from the driver's seat. "Damn, kid, that was smooth." Marcus leaned back, exhaling slowly. His hands weren't shaking. Not this time. "Yeah," he said. "I guess it was." Jessica handed him a burner phone. "Say the words." Marcus took a breath, then dialed the number Jessica had given him earlier. A deep voice answered on the first ring. "Did you get it?" Marcus smirked. "Yeah," he said. "And now?" "We burn them all." Marcus sat in the back of the black SUV, his fingers gripping the briefcase filled with secrets. Inside was power, not the kind you held in your hands, but the kind that could crumble empires and bury men alive. The client list, names, bank accounts, offshore transactions, every corrupt politician, cop, and businessman who had funded the cartel, who had let men like Salazar run the streets like kings, who had allowed innocent people to die without consequence. And now Marcus had it. Jessica drove in silence, her hands firm on the wheel, her expression unreadable. "You did good, kid," she said finally. "Better than I expected." Marcus leaned back in the seat, his heartbeat finally slowing down. "Didn't feel that hard," Jessica chuckled. "That's the scary part. It's supposed to feel hard." But Marcus didn't feel guilty. He had stolen from killers, from men who would have destroyed his mother's life, his life, the lives of thousands of people just like them. And for the first time since the bridge siege, Marcus felt in control. "You still sure about this?" Jessica asked. Marcus didn't even hesitate. "Yeah, because now, this wasn't just survival. This was war." They didn't take the briefcase to a police station. They didn't hand it over to the FBI. Marcus had learned quickly that the system was already rotting from the inside. Instead, they took it to a man who had no rules. His name was Elijah Graves. A former hacker, journalist, and government whistleblower, Elijah had been exiled from mainstream media for exposing a multi-billion-dollar corruption scandal years ago. Now he ran a covert network, one that specialized in leaking information powerful men wanted buried. When Marcus and Jessica entered his hidden Newcrest City safe house, the air was thick with the smell of coffee and burning electronics. Multiple screens lined the walls, all showing live news feeds, coded databases, and dark web message boards. Elijah sat at the center of it all, a bearded man with sharp eyes, typing at a ridiculous speed, his fingers a blur over his keyboard. Jessica placed the briefcase on his desk. "Got something for you?" Elijah glanced at Marcus. "So this is the kid?" Marcus crossed his arms. "You got a problem with that?" Elijah smirked. "Nah, I've seen grown men fold under less pressure than what you pulled off." He flipped open the case, his eyes widening slightly as he scanned the documents. "Jesus," he muttered. "This is a goddamn nuclear bomb." Jessica leaned forward. "Can you get it out there?" Elijah grinned. "Sweetheart, by the time I'm done, the entire world will know what these bastards have been doing." He cracked his knuckles and got to work. Marcus watched the screens as Elijah began uploading the files, routing them through multiple servers, encrypting the leaks, sending anonymous tips to every major news outlet across the globe. Then he turned to Marcus. "You ready to watch a city burn, kid?" Marcus didn't blink. Light the match. By morning, everything had changed. The names from the list were plastered across every news channel, every social media site, every major broadcast worldwide. Breaking news, massive government corruption exposed. Senators, cops, business tycoons implicated in cartel ties. National scandal, who can still be trusted? New Crest City erupted into chaos. Some of the powerful men on the list were arrested immediately. Others vanished overnight, leaving behind burned accounts and empty offices. And some tried to fight back, but Marcus had expected that. The first assassination attempt came 2 nights after the leaks. Marcus was sitting in his new bedroom when he heard the click of a gun being cocked outside his window. His body moved before his mind caught up. He hit the ground just as the first bullet punched through the glass. "Mom, get down!" he shouted. Angela barely had time to react before bullets ripped through the walls, tearing apart furniture, shattering picture frames. Marcus grabbed his mother, pulling her behind the kitchen counter, as the sound of heavy boots storming through the front door sent a chill down his spine. More men, more killers. And this time they weren't here for hostages. They were here to end him. But Marcus wasn't the same kid they had met on that bridge. Marcus grabbed the pistol Jessica had left for him and crouched low, his mind calculating the odds. 4 men, maybe 5. They were trained, but they weren't expecting him to be 2. Marcus took a deep breath, then moved. He slid low across the floor, coming up behind the first intruder, pressing the gun to the back of the man's knee and pulling the trigger. Bang! The man screamed, collapsing, and before the others could react, Marcus grabbed the downed man's rifle, spinning it toward the second intruder. Rat-tat-tat! A short burst of bullets dropped him where he stood. By the time the last 2 men realized they had underestimated a kid, Marcus was already on them. He hit the third guy with a metal frying pan straight to the skull, sending him crashing into the dining table. The fourth hesitated. Too late. Marcus shot him in the shoulder, then kicked his gun away as he hit the ground. Silence. 4 men. Down. Angela was staring at him, her eyes wide with shock and something else, fear. "Marcus," she whispered. He didn't look at her. Instead, he walked over to the last conscious assassin, pressing his foot on the man's bleeding shoulder. "Who sent you?" Marcus asked, his voice eerily calm. The man spat blood but said nothing. Marcus lifted the pistol to his forehead. "You're gonna tell me," he said quietly, "or I make an example out of you." Angela gasped. "Marcus, stop!" But before he had to pull the trigger, the man finally broke. "Hale!" he stammered. "Congressman Hale! He's the one pulling the strings now!" Marcus exhaled. A new name, a new enemy. And now, he was going to find him. By the time Jessica arrived, the assassins were zip-tied and unconscious. The house was a wreck, and Marcus was packing a bag. Jessica sighed. "Guessing you don't need a babysitter anymore." Marcus zipped his backpack shut. "Guess not." Jessica smirked. "Where are you going?" she asked. Marcus slung the bag over his shoulder. "Hunting." Jessica nodded, handing him a brand new fake ID, a new alias, a new mission. "You're in now, kid," she said. "No turning back." Marcus took the ID, slipping it into his pocket. He looked out the window at the city still burning from the truth he had unleashed. I don't plan to. And with that, Marcus Williams disappeared. And in his place, a legend was born. Sure to like this video, subscribe for more real stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps keep the fight for justice alive.